Who, that was when you arrived at the Corliss Landing? Officer Grimm met you and escorted you down?
There was another officer that met us first.
And who was that?
I believe it was Officer Zimmer.
Officer Zimmer?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you meet him?
They had already taped off the access way into the gravel area, so I met him there along with Captain White.
And so you and Captain White arrived at the same time?
No, sir.
Captain White arrived first?
Yes.
Was he already down at the scene by the time you got there?
I believe so.
So when you got to the, was there some yellow police tape?
Yes.
Where Officer Zimmer was?
Correct.
And that was there when you arrived?
Yes.
And you've seen a North Attleboro Fire Department report of this evening's activities, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that reflects that you arrived at the scene at 5:40, is that right?
No, sir.
You were dispatched at 5:40?
Correct.
Arrived at 5:46?
5:46.
That's when you arrived?
I believe in my report it was 5:50.
This is the North Attleboro Fire Department report.
Is that a patient care report? Is that?
You recognize that document?
No, sir.
You don't recognize that document?
No.
Are you familiar with how entry into the computer system of the North Attleboro Fire Department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And am I correct in understanding that when you arrive, when you're dispatched to a location, the dispatcher announces to you that you should go to a certain location?
Correct.
And there are computers that the dispatcher uses to record when that dispatch goes out.
Yes.
And similarly, when you arrive at a location, part of your practice is to announce to the dispatcher when you've arrived.
Correct.
And that's recorded in the system by the dispatcher.
It should be, correct.
And then when you leave a location, you notify the dispatcher, correct?
Correct.
And the dispatcher then reports that in the computer system, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated that in your patient care report, you reported the time as 5:50?
On scene?
Yes.
Correct.
And would that have been when you were down at the scene of the body with Captain White?
It could have been. I'm not sure.
There was some period of time after you arrive before you're actually at the scene of the body, correct?
Correct.
I mean, did you take some apparatus out of the vehicle you were driving in?
Yes, sir.
What did you take?
The computer. It's a laptop.
And you were with another firefighter?
Correct.
And who was that?
Firefighter Burns.
Okay. And is that Lieutenant Burns?
No, sir.
What vehicle were you in and firefighter Burns in?
An ambulance.
And you see this report
Yes, sir.
describes Ronald Burns, that's
He's not a lieutenant, sir.
and Captain White, what vehicle was he driving?
He was a command vehicle.
And was there a third piece of equipment?
There was.
And what was that?
That was an engine company.
And who was on that?
Lieutenant Stack and Firefighter Little.
So if the report indicates that it was only David Chrétien, that wouldn't be correct?
No, sir.
So it was firefighter, I'm sorry, give me those two names again, please.
On the engine company?
Yes, please.
Lieutenant Stack and Firefighter Paramedic Little.
Okay. Now, when you arrived at the crime scene tape, did you see anybody down by the body?
I don't recall, sir.
Okay. And when you arrived down by the body, who was there?
I was with Captain White and Officer Grimm.
And what did you see Captain White do?
He was instructing me the patient location, what he found, and instructing me to write a patient care report.
And were you there when Captain White was next to the body?
The first time, no.
So once you got down to the body, you came to understand that Captain White had already gone over to the body.
Yes, sir.
And then after you arrived, did he go back over to the body?
With myself, yes.
So the two of you go over to the body, and he's dictating in a patient care report.
Yes.
And you said you were 5 to 8 feet away, something in that area?
That's an estimate, yes.
You saw a photograph of a hat that was above Mr. Lloyd's head?
Yes.
And do you recall where you were in relation to the hat?
Fairly close to that area.
Somewhere between the hat and the body?
I'd say no closer than the hat.
Okay. And with respect to Captain White...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last response.
No closer.
Oh, no closer. Thank you.
And with respect to Captain White, where was he as he was dictating his findings?
Right next to myself.
Okay. He didn't go back down to the body
No, sir.
to dictate the findings?
No, sir.
Now, did you see anyone taking photographs while you were down at the scene of the body?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you remember Detective Arrighi being there?
I do not.
Do you remember Captain Dorenzo being there?
Not that I recall.
You saw a photograph that Mr. McCauley showed you on direct examination, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that photograph, it was you and Captain White and Officer Grimm?
Correct.
And who was taking that photograph?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So do you recall anyone taking photographs while you were down there, other than the photograph of the three of you?
No.
All right. Now, do you recall other firefighters, other members of the North Attleboro Fire Department arriving before you left?
No, I don't believe so.
Do you remember Captain Meyer?
Not while I was there, no.
And what time did you leave?
A little after 6 o'clock. 6:13, I believe it was.
And did you remain at the scene even after you left the perimeter?
No, sir.
Now, were you present when there was any discussion of the need for tents or tarps?
Yes, sir.
And what do you remember about that?
I remember them being concerned about the incoming weather.
And if you left at 6:13 or 6:15, there was no rain at that time.
No, sir.
And were there clouds in the distance?
Yes.
And people expressed concern about the possibility of rain coming?
Yes.
And were you there when officers collected evidence?
No, sir.
Do you remember being present when cartridge casings were collected?
No, sir.
Do you remember being present when the hat was collected?
No.
And had you left the scene by that time, or you just don't have a memory of it?
I believe I had left the scene.
Okay. Do you remember being present when a white towel was collected?
No, sir.
Now, once you left, did you go back to your vehicle and await further instruction, or you just left?
I believe we went back to the ambulance, and then we were cleared.
All right. And were you present at the scene when another captain arrived at the scene?
No, sir.
So when you heard the discussion about tarps and canopies, did you do anything?
No, sir.
And were you present when anyone else in the fire department volunteered or offered to do anything?
I don't recall.
Do you remember hearing that there were some tarps and canopies that the fire department had that would be brought to the scene?
Yes,
And was that in fact done?
I believe it was.
And you were there?
I did not witness that, no.
Did you witness them arriving with the canopies and tarps?
I don't believe so, no.
So by the time you left, had a white tent been set up for Officer Zimmer's perimeter post?
No, sir.
Okay. That's all, thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor, were there any other firefighters that you saw besides yourself and Captain White who went inside the perimeter anywhere near that body?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Can we step down? Mr. Hernandez, do you have enough to start another witness today, or?
If you'd like, I would. It's your call, Your Honor, whatever you'd like to do.
Sure.
Okay. Actually, I wouldn't get through this witness, Your Honor. It might take some time.
Okay, then why don't we stop, since we're stopping at 11. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to suspend at this time. Let me remind you, please, to keep your minds suspended. Please continue to